Hi everybody, Suzanne in Ohio. Okay, now we're back with our third video in our series, Paint With Me. You'll have to go back and watch, I encourage you to go back and watch my previous three videos and come up to date with what we're doing here. In the meantime, I'm going to assume that you have followed me along, and just a reminder, we have our first underpainting on here, and then we added a few shadows up here and a few things down here. So this is the little image that we're kind of looking at for ideas. You can always look at things like this to see how the shadows and the highlights were placed and different things like that. Now you can see this is in a totally different colorway than the one I'm working on. This artist executed this one in a yellow-green type of color, and I've done mine in a blue-green type of color. That is your choice as an artist. You can do anything you want. So what we want to do now is look at our pictures and ask ourselves, what does this need? And we're always asking and looking in terms of contrast, light and dark. So what I might do is lighten up this side, darken this side a little bit more, although it doesn't have to have that, and then think about highlights. As far as the berries go, hey, I'm going to bring you down here just a little closer. As far as the berries go, I'm going to brighten them up and put some highlights on them. So let's work on that first. And I've got my same old tray of paint here. I'm going to see if there's anything salvageable on that tray. Now let me choose a brush here. Um, and I've got my water still sitting here. And I'm going to see if some of my paint is still wet. And it is. I spritzed it down, but I'll tell you what, I had quite the commotion of things going on since I uploaded my last video. Oh, computer problems. But anyway, I have it working. Now, remember, we want to make a little puddle of paint, kind of like a thin, creamy color for what we're doing right now. So I'm just mushing around a little bit of water in this pure, pure red. And I'm going to put some on here, get this, and to brighten this up. Now, I've got shadows, and what's going to happen is it's going to appear that I'm covering them up. But what you'll find out is once I add some water on here, those shadows will come right back because you're going to be able to see them through this paint. Now I'm going to add a little bit more brightness to this. And I've got just enough to add some to the other one. And on this side that looks pretty pale and weak, I'm going to drag it right through there. Okay, now I'm going to just add a little water to my brush, not rinsing it out, just add it to it. And just give this paint here that I put on here some moisture so that I can smush it around. And what you'll see is, when it's dry, I still have shadows underneath that bright paint. They'll show through. But if you feel like you have too much paint on there and you've added some water, here's something you can do. You can just take a little bit of it off. And then I want some water on this one to incorporate that brand new bright color that I laid on top of those shadows. I don't have to work it very hard. The water will work it for me. Okay, and until that's dry, I won't do anything else. Now, we'll let that dry while I work on the leaf, and then we'll go back and put some highlights on that, and then we're going to call it done. So I'll lay that over there. Now, what do we want to do on the leaf? I want to stay in this blue-green category, and since my paint has all dried up, I'm going to put out a little bit more paint, and it should be enough. And let's see, I better get a drip of blue. Okay, that's way too much blue, and I know that. Blue is a much stronger color in almost every color line or paints. The pigment is stronger than. So I'm going to just take this over here, move it away from that blue, and then start stirring around a little bit. Now, I can stick with this bright green, blue-green, and do some edges, and then come back and put some red in it later to create a shadowy green, a dark, dirty green. Remember from our last video, we said if you add a color to a color, if they're opposite on the color wheel, they will dull. We used to call it darken or dead the color or kill the color. So I like what I've got going on here. I like the shadows, but I want this leaf to look a little bit more green. So this is just a trial. I'm going to see what happens here. And I'm going to give myself, again, that vein. And I think, I don't want to cover everything up. Let your paint marks and your fabric and everything kind of work for you. So let's get a little bit of water on here. And let's see what happens with this with the water added to it. Now we're getting a green, green, green. But we have an underlayment of blue-green. And let's encourage it to come out here and blend. Now, we don't have to overpaint, and ruin the effects of everything. Visible brush marks and imperfections and all of that really add to your painting. Now, you can see I worked that with a smaller brush. I realize I can use a brush that holds a little bit more water, so I'm going to switch to that one and just put a similar type application on the other side. And I'm going to do this sort of thing and sometimes I just mush it around and see what happens. Now I put a very dry paint on a dry fabric and it stuck. That line stuck. So what you can do is take a stiffer brush, and I've got one that's an acrylic bristle, and I'm going to scrub it. When you do watercolors, you have scrubbing brushes that do this very thing. They just kind of take your hard lines away and help you work in or scrub off. In watercolor, you can scrub your paint and lift it back off again. And I don't mind that so far right now. Now I'm going to take a thinner wash of this green until I get this, and that's not thin enough. So I've made a little mistake, but there is no harm done There's nothing about this that I can't fix. It's just such a heavy pigment. Now, I want to go over my vein area, but not entirely. I want to leave that impression there. All right. So what's going on now is, oh gosh, I've changed the sides. This one, since I've already got this going on here, this could be my lighter side. So this could be my darker. So let's take care of the darker. And what am I going to do? To darken my paint, I'm just going to take a little bit of red, some of this watery red that I've got here, and I'm going to mix it over here. And what that does is give me a dark, dark green. Opposite on the color wheel darkens or dulls the color. Now that's way too thick for what I want to do. I want to actually create a wash to go over top. And so I'll pull some of it off the side here, and it'll be 2/3 water and 1/3 paint. And then when I feel like I have the right consistency in my brush, I'm just going to lay it down right over top. And it could be a little darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more red. Oh yeah, coming along here. Now, right now, it just looks like a dark gray brown, and that's fine because laid over top of the green you already have on there gives it the shadow effect that you need. How about that? Look at that coming into play there. Just what it's supposed to look like. Now, I do want to create a shadow area here just on the one side of the vein. And, oh, I could even put a little shadow right here in the stem. And that's really enough. Now what we're going to do, I'm testing to see how dry or wet it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get some white, and then we're going to add some highlights. Now because this isn't as dry as I really would want it, it's not going to look perfect. But I wanted you to have the idea of base coat, add your bright colors, put your shadows in, then put your highlights. It really is simple when you think about that. I have no idea how this will work out right here, but we're going to try. Like I told you, I am not professional. We're going to thin down a little bit of that white. I like to put a white wash on first, and then when it's totally dry, I go back and put some actual white streaks on it. So let's see what happens right here on this berry. And my highlights off to the side, and I'm going to accentuate everything off to the side. So I can do this, and then I can rinse my brush. Doesn't have to be perfectly rinsed. Get mostly water on it and come back and just soften the edges of that berry. Now if you feel like you have too much white on there, let's add a little water, and then let's sop it up. How about that? Okay, so get a little bit more white, and let's work on this one. Put a little highlight on there, little water, and this is a fairly stiff brush I've got in my hand because it's an acrylic bristle, And I love it for when I have to really push or get that paint moved around. I've come to, other than for watercolor, I've come to like my acrylic brushes more than anything. So now you're going to see that that white highlight nearly disappears when it dries because it's not solid paint. It's just, I've got a hair going on here. I get it. Okay. And just voila. Now it's got a whitewash on it, a whitewash of white, and then we'll put some real bright white little streaks on it when it's done. Our leaf is looking pretty good. I hope you're coloring what you're seeing on your screen. This is pretty vibrant here. If you don't think it's quite right, let me know and I'll adjust my color setup as best I can. So I'd like to try to get this edge a little bit lighter. But being a little inexperienced as I am, I'm not sure what to do. And you're saying the same thing to yourself, right? So I'm going to take a little bit of green and mix some white with it. And that might be the approach, it might not. I do not know. When you mix black or white with a color, you're making a tint and a tone. And it does end up looking different. So let's just see if I cause this to blend, what might happen here. I'm going to rinse my brush, take most of the water out, but not all of it, and go back over these edges and soften them up. You can see it all blending as we speak because that still has a little dampness in it and it's pulling itself together, blending itself. All right, now I could go over that again if I want to, but what I think I'll do is switch to total white and just try putting in my white washes. So let's get some pure white but thinned down. We're going to put some water with it and thin it down. I just want really a lot of white. And you have to kind of imagine where that light might be hitting that leaf. And let's see how that works. Rinsing the brush out, dabbing most of the water off, and I'm just going to come back and soften these edges. I'm not dragging that white all the way to the edge. Just get it to blend itself right into what's already on the. And there, I have a nice light side going. This mark here, I can work it until it just kind of disappears a little bit. Okay, so I have a light side, I have bright, I have light, bright, and dark. If you think of that rule as light, bright, and dark and get some contrast in there, you should be totally fine. You could do something real creative and actually put, just take your artist's liberty and put some other colors in there. You know, things are not always just one color. Let's go back to our berries now before we get too far along here. And I'm just going to put some pure white right on top of that whitewash that I already put down. And if I like it, I can leave it remember, this is decorative painting. It's for decorator purposes and things like that. Nothing is perfect. It's not a perfect world. If you like it, it's good. Okay. Now that will be a little bit more blended as it dries. And that berry is kind of recessed. This one is up front, so it needs the lighter highlight. And oh, I think we're doing good. All right, now I hope you've enjoyed that so far. And I want you to practice, get some scraps and practice. And then when I come back on my next video, let's see, what should we do? We could do something else in a different color scheme. I could show you a little bit more about how I transfer my patterns onto the fabric. All right. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in painting on fabric, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have anything to ask or to say. Thanks for watching.